Welcome to brew number 20. After all that mucking about with ciders, we're back to the good stuff with a raspberry wheat beer. And what on earth do you do if brew day has to be interrupted halfway through due to an emergency? Well, watch and find out. Today's homebrew is a kit that comes from Get Brewed, and the kit comes with all of the grains that you need already packed and mixed and milled, some Styrian hops, some WB06 yeast, of which we only need a third of this, so we'll have 2/3 of that left over, and a Whirlflock Tablet, and some pretty good instructions. The instructions are pretty simple and straightforward. I think in hindsight, actually, if you've never done an all grain brew, it perhaps misses a few bits out that you might be more interested in. But if you've ever done one before, this is all you need. It just gives you the basics. So our first step is a 60-minute mash at 67 degrees, and we're going to do a sparge. So the first amount of water we need to heat is 2.1 litres at 70 degrees. So getting started. I'm using distilled water for this. I've also measured out 3.8 litres of sparge water, but we won't need that just yet. Both are distilled. We've reached 70 degrees, so it's time to mash in the grains. The only disappointment I think about Get Brewed kit is it doesn't tell me what the grains actually are and the quantities of each, but you know, we can guess it's a wheat. And having it, and having it prepared in advance, I do like. Now I need to mix that in. The mash temperature is 67 degrees, so I will watch the temperature come down as we mash in. Been 20 minutes. We're still good on the temperature. Let's talk about water chemistry, because I haven't really done anything with this one so far. And it does seem like the prevalent thinking for wheat beer is actually it can be almost anything because of the variety of places it can come from. However, there is something I can do. So one of some messages that does seem to come through most frequently is a touch of calcium chloride benefits this type of beer. So I am going to make a small water profile addition, but talk about small, this is smaller than small, and I wonder if it really is going to make any difference. However, you know, sort of for the scale of brew, which is just 7 litres, adding a bit of calcium chloride at the recommended sort of dose, scaled down to 7 litres, does result in around about half a gram. That looks something like, you know, that. So I am going to add it. I am going to add some that to it. It does seem to be something that's worthwhile. Other than that, it really is just a simple distilled water that's being used. The raspberries is going to make quite a big deal to the taste, maybe more so than the water profile. We will see though, and I will make that small difference. But anybody who's got comments and thoughts, please do comment. I am interested in learning more about water profiles. The mash is just coming to the end. And over here we've started heating 3.8 litres of sparge water up to 77 degrees. My new saucepan has a hole for the thermometer. That's handy, Harry. I'm just waiting for this to come up to 77 degrees. It's almost there. There we go. Loving that feature. I'm going to move the sparge water to a jug. That's just going to make it easier to sparge. It also gives me my bigger pan to put the grains into. So, there we go. Oh, come on. Place the fine mesh strainer over the stock pot, pour your grains into the strainer, leaving the liquid behind. Now pour your sparging water over the grains. Okay, we can start heating this up. While we start sparging. This sample is two purposes. One is to do the pre-boil gravity reading, and the second is to take a pH reading. That is going to go in the fridge. So here we are back again several hours later. Now what has happened is, just as I was finishing the mash and starting the boil, I got an urgent phone call and had to head to the hospital. So under those circumstances, what do you do? Well, obviously you head to the hospital and come back and pick up the pieces later on. Fortunately, I was at a good point, I believe. Now, the boil never got to the boil, so the water is sitting there and has only dropped to 40 degrees. Despite it being quite a long time. So actually that's quite remarkable. So I am going to simply pick up where I left off in the hope that that pause in the middle really does no harm. I think if it had been a bit later on and I'd started adding hops and I'd been halfway through the hop schedule, then it would have been a different situation entirely. But as it is, I may have got away with it. But we'll only know when we come to drinking. Right, well, crisis averted, everyone's fine, let's get back on with it. Right, the game is back on. Doing my best not to knock it over again. Pre-boil, we're already quite high, 144. I'm liking my new glass measuring cylinder. Being able to see right through the middle does make a difference. While that is coming up to the boil, we have our hop additions. Now the hop additions come in these wonderful little tea bag sized shapes. So 3 grams of Styrian Goldings, each in its own separate addition bag. Isn't that fabulous? Certainly makes straining a lot easier. The aroma is fabulous. Our first hop addition in its tea bag. We have here 300 grams of raspberries, and while that's continuing, we have another task to complete. Task complete. This is our 30-minute hop addition. Another tea bag goes in. Hop bag, I should say. We are at the 10-minute mark. 3 additions this time. First of all, we've got another hop bag. We also have a Whirlflock Tablet. That will help with clarity. Which seems to fizz when you drop it in. And an interesting addition, our raspberries can go in. Wow, definitely smells of raspberries now. Less of beer. Our 60 minutes are up, it's time for cooling and one final hop addition. Right, over to cooling. It's time for cooling, which largely is just giving it a good stir while keeping the water around it as cold as possible. So, I'll add the thermometer in a minute, but for now, pretty obvious. We're there. There's another difference going on in this brew. This is a 10-litre bucket. This is a 5-litre brew. And the reason for going for a bigger bucket, despite the fact that would leave a lot of headspace, is because I've had a lot of Krausen and the need for a blow-off tube because of the sort of vigorous fermentation at the start. One of the recommendations I read was, of course, use a bigger bucket and then you don't need to have a blow-off tube. So I'm going to give it a try, see what happens. Always learning something new. Okay, fish out the tea bags. And transfer to the fermenter. I need a gravity reading. .1054, I think. Our final 2 steps. I have some Fermento here. This is a yeast nutrient, so I'm going to add some of that. This is the WB06 yeast. So the instructions are to pitch 1/3 of the packet. Now, I confess I do prefer weighing things. I think that's more like half, never mind. Does smell like beer again though. This has been one stressful brew day. Smell is lovely, but the impact of that gap in the middle, I just do not know. I'm going to hope for the best and put this away. Fermentation time will vary depending on a number of variables. Aim to ferment at 21 degrees for around 10 days. Despite a rocky start, fermentation has started just less than 24 hours later. Raspberry Ale, day 2. It's all gone a bit quiet. It's day 15 and the raspberry wheat beer is in the fridge. So it'll be here for a just little while and then we will move it to the kegs and carbonate. Wheat beer is apparently one of those beers that's best drunk fresh. So I'm definitely not going to mess around with this one and crack on. It's raspberry ale, day 16, and we're going to move it to the keg. Now, the biggest challenge I have with using a bucket like this has been you just can't see what's going on. Now, one of the things that was interesting, I actually marked this bucket. You can sort of see I got a 10-litre bucket because I normally do 5 litres. And the idea being that that sort of prevents the need for the sort of krausen exploding through the airlock. It gives me some extra room. However, the actual level went up to here. So I think I have far less than 5 litres in here. So I'm going to try and move it to a 4-litre keg and I should be fine. It is possible that I run out of space and I've got a spare bottle just in case so I don't lose any. So let's try and break in and take a look. Well, it smells lovely. Come and take a look. Now there are those little bits on the top, but honestly I don't think they're mould or anything sort of worrying like that. I do think they are just the remains of the krausen or the pith from the raspberries that we used. So, and it smells absolutely wonderful. So lots of things to make me think this is absolutely fine. I can't really see how much trub there is at the bottom, so just siphoning will be a bit cautious. And of course over here, the keg has been in the fridge cooling down as well, so that it's cold when we sort of siphon in. So that will help hopefully to prevent any foaming while we're siphoning into the keg. On the grounds that something always goes wrong, I've got a spare gas cylinder. So the first step I'm going to do is just to prime it with a bit of CO2. Of course, that will have pushed the oxygen presumably to the top. So if I just let a bit out, that is presumably letting out mostly the air. Of course, I do want a hydrometer reading. That's going to be too cold to do a hydrometer reading straight away. So I'm just going to put that to one side for a moment and we'll come back to that later. This is well-trodden territory. So first, I'll just let the pressure out. So take that off. That does look about 2/3 full. Okay, that's running at 15 psi. So that's going to go back in the fridge. Gosh, that did go smoothly. Shocking. Overshot a bit, it's about 18 psi. Now, I do have a lot of sludge It does seem like there wasn't particularly a great deal of Krausen up the sides. There was just a little bit at the bottom. So maybe I worried unnecessarily about the fermentation. However, there was a ridiculous amount of sludge left at the bottom. I was well below 4 litres in my keg. It was also pretty obvious I did take a little chunk of that sludge with me when I was siphoning. Here's hoping to the final beer comes out somewhere near this colour. That would be fab.
This is my raspberry wheat beer. Checking on carbonation later today.
Right, looking forward to this, albeit I do think there's going to be some sediment that comes through to begin with. So, first step though is just going to be to bring the pressure down. I do need to figure out if it's sufficiently carbonated. It's been in here for a week and it's been on 25-ish, you know, sort of it's buried up a little bit, but I've just still kept an eye on it. First step is going to be just to bring it down. It's coming out pretty foamy. Well, I think we can safely say it's carbonated, but oh wow, smell. Right. Accepting that at the moment I'm just drinking some foam, that is very nice. This was the first pour and you can really see the amount of sediment that came through. I did notice that I took a lot with me, so I'm glad that actually most of all that came through pretty quickly in that first sort of try when I sort of brought it out, albeit under slightly too high pressure. But it started to sort of separate here. It is still, you know, as a result of the raspberries, quite a hazy drink. If I was to make an adjustment, it might be that I think I could have doubled up on perhaps the amount of raspberries just to give it a bit more raspberry flavour, or it needed a bit longer to just sort of mature with that flavour. I'm not sure which it would be, but yeah, very much in the style of a wheat beer. Pour the pressure down quite a lot. I did get quite a lot of sediment in that first glass, and that's what I was trying to avoid in this one. Second pour, still a little frothy on top with my little party tap, but the key sort of messages here are the colour, lovely golden colour, which was exactly as we'd expected, hopefully with a bit of that sort of ruby that was coming through from the raspberries. You can't quite see that, but I think that does give it some of its depth of colour. The aroma is lovely. You can really smell the fruit, although not, you know, the raspberries is quite a light aroma to it, but you can definitely tell that it is raspberries that's there. The taste as well. Very nice indeed. It hasn't got particularly fruity or citrusy taste. This has come out really quite nice. This, in terms of the beer home brews I've made so far, this is second only to my Smash very wheat beer type, as you'd expect. Perhaps not as fruity as I imagined it might have been. I'm going to bottle the raspberry wheat beer, Now, I don't know exactly how much is in there, but I can guess. You can see the condensation line sort of here on the keg that I bought out of the fridge about 15 minutes ago. So, but judging by that, I probably got about 1.5 litres maybe in there. I've also probably still got a bit of sediment. So the first bottle I'm going to pull off is for me to have a beer tonight, and then I'll see what more I can get out to put away for a little while and share with friends. A new adjustment to the process is a bit of stability. I've just put 2 cases of beer beside the keg because it does tend to fall over once it gets empty. First of all, we've got a setup, of course. How well did I do? Is there any left in here? Almost nothing. So, raspberry wheat beer has been in the fridge just over a week. It's cleared up a little. You can sort of see that there. Still got plenty of sediment there at the bottom. But quite looking forward to seeing how this one goes. I think I was expecting more of a pop. Seems to be a lovely colour. So, aroma. Very much in the style of a wheat beer. Faintly of raspberry. Okay, time for a taste. Nice and cold, nice and refreshing. Oddly enough, relatively little raspberry taste, but you know, actually sort of within the sort of style of a wheat beer. So very pleasant, mildly bitter, but yeah, delicious. As for mouthfeel, it is pretty light, as I think you would expect from a beer of this style. So it's absolutely on target. It's not a full-bodied taste. It's quite a light, fresh, fruity, I guess, drink. Colour. The colours come out a lovely amber colour, so I'm very pleased with that. Perhaps, you know, I was expecting just a little more clarity, but actually there was a lot more sediment in this from the raspberries than I expected, so perhaps could have done more to sort of help reduce that a little. But hey, you know, live and learn on that one. Overall evaluation. Is it a 7 or is it an 8? Oh, 7.5. Cheers everyone. Thank you so much for watching this latest video on the raspberry wheat beer. I've thoroughly enjoyed doing this brew. I am a new home brewer. I'm learning as I go along and sharing these videos and lessons as I go. So do please feel free to comment and subscribe and like and share these videos as much as you can. Much appreciated, and happy home brewing everyone. Cheers. And good health. And so we come to our lessons learned. And given that I've got 9 of them from this brew, this is very much a quick fire round. So my first lesson learned, very much a thumbs up, was the use of a 10-litre bucket for a 5-litre brew. Why would I do this, you may ask? Well, it was quite simply to allow for expansion, and I didn't need to use a blow-off tube. I could just use a normal airlock, and it gave me plenty of capacity for those really vigorous start to fermentation. Lesson number 2 was Brew Day Interrupted, which really did demonstrate that you can get away with quite a lot. Now, I was quite fortunate, I think, in terms of the point that I'd reached when it was interrupted. However, I do think there are several stages I could have got away with and then continued. So again, big lesson to me, just exactly how robust this homebrew process is. Lesson number 3, another thumbs up, was the Get a Brewed kit. Super delivery, really quick, super ingredients, fantastic end result. I liked the instructions. I would have preferred just a smidge more detail, but other than that, really recommend that kit. Lesson number 4 was definitely a down for me, and that was I didn't have enough volume and I should have added additional liquid, diluting the gravity and actually bringing it all to a level that was perhaps more correct and also giving me the correct volume. So mistake made, definitely won't repeat that one again. I will keep an eye on the volume. Lesson number 5 is the plastic buckets. Now, the 10-litre bucket size was a great plus, but a big down for this is the fact that you can't see what's going on with the fermentation. I do enjoy watching and seeing how the fermentation is going. So a glass carboy of different sizes is on my shopping list for the future, but for now they are super cheap, so good thumbs up. Lesson number 6 is the water chemistry, and I started with distilled water, necessitating the need for adding some additional chemicals. However, the simpler option, and the one I should have taken, was simply to use some spring water. So mistake made, this was a simple brew, it didn't need a complex water chemistry, spring water would have been fine. Lesson number 7 is overcarbonation. Now I use the set and wait method for carbonating because I didn't want to drink it straight away. However, what I did was I set the pressure at really quite high, a pressure that you normally set if you're really force carbonating within 10 or 20 minutes by rocking it and trying to force carbonate it immediately. The set and wait method really does set a lower temperature over a period of time and you wait. And that's what I should have been doing. So this one I set the pressure far too high and hence overcarbonated, but at least I now understand the charts. To read the chart, all I needed to do was understand the temperature that I was storing it at. Temperature of my fridge was approximately 10 degrees, so I should have just read across the 10 degrees line until I found the number of units of CO2 I was looking for, and that would have given me the pressure. It turns out the pressure I should have set it at was closer to 8 to 10 psi, and in actual fact I set it at a lot higher than that. So now I understand set and wait method, that's what I need to do in the future. Lesson number 8 is the raspberries. The raspberry flavour was quite light and I think I could have used more raspberries within this brew. However, there is a counter to that, which raspberries reduce the pH value, which leads me to my final lesson learned. Lesson number 9 then is the role of pH, from which I learned loads during this video, and I actually took it out because I made quite a few mistakes, and I'm going to actually record a separate video with what I learned stage by stage throughout the pH process. However, a couple of quick takeaways. One was the ingredients were pre-packed without any sort of note on the water, so it was down to me to understand the pH myself because it didn't have any information regarding that. If you put ingredients into Brewfather or Brewsmith or one of the other sort of tools, then it will actually tell you the chemicals to add to get the pH right. I didn't know that on this brew. However, raspberries
really do reduce the pH. So in actual fact, any problems I think the raspberries would have compensated for anyway. And I think that was understood when they put the recipe together. And so actually I was overthinking it by trying to sort of work my way through the role of pH during this brew. However, do look out, I've got another video coming where I will actually discuss the mistakes I made and the lessons I learned at each of the different stages regarding pH. Thank you very much for watching. Do like and subscribe for future videos, and do give me some comments and feedback. I'm still learning lots here. This is my second year of homebrewing and still having loads of fun. So much appreciated. Happy homebrewing everyone. Cheers.